Welcome back to Mouthing Off with Mike. It's been quite a time since you and I have been here together at the same place. Whether you're listening on the audio side, whether you're listening on or watching on the video side, it's been a little bit since I've gotten to talk in full about a lot of my ideas and what's going on in professional wrestling. But this week, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot that came out. We've got the Lucha Brothers contract debacle. We got a Vince McMahon documentary. We've got announcements of shows going down 2 hours, going up 3 hours. We've got shows going to new networks. And we've got a pay-per-view. And we've got a crazy tag team. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Mouthing Off with Mike, the only wrestling podcast that is really all about Halloween safety.
Mouthing Off with Mike, Mouthing Off with Mike, Mouthing Off with Mike.
It was reported this week that the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon, El Zero Miedo, and Rey Fenix, were headed to WWE. Well, we knew Rey Fenix was out on injury quite a little bit over the last year or so. So people were kind of speculating, well, is Tony Khan going to add injury time to Rey Fenix's contract? Well, Tony Khan never really does that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Tony Khan did it. And as you imagine, people lost their minds. Well, how dare Tony Khan do this? This is the exact opposite of what Tony Khan was setting out to do with AEW. It's a business, ladies and gentlemen. And if two of your talent who are not re-signing with you were hurt, in the case of Rey Fenix, one of your talent is hurt, as a businessman, you do have that ability to add injury time to the contract. The contract, you sign that contract, whatever's in that contract, you have to follow suit through. The contract says you have to work a certain amount of days, you're going to work those certain amount of days. The contract says if you're injured, time can be added at the end of your contract for that missed time. It's a financial investment into the talent. WWE's done it for years. Every wrestling company does it. It's happened. It's happened in the past. Does it suck? Yeah, it sucks for the guys because now they're going to be doing nothing. I mean, maybe Penta will come to WWE and you can set up a story with him in like the singles mid-card time or put him in NXT for a stretch until Phoenix contract expires and he comes over and you reunite them and you get him in the tag division. There's options. I don't really see it as a big deal. I mean, this is one of those things where it's like, look, you can't talk down on one company for doing it and then not talk about the other companies, most obviously the biggest one, WWE. You can't talk about it like that and say like, well, he's a bad guy for doing that. I mean, you're entitled to your opinion, but from a business standpoint, it makes sense, especially knowing that those guys are going to WWE. That's the competition. It's one of those gray areas. It's business. Is it dirty business? Is it solid business? Is it clean business? It's business at its core. That's just how it rolls. Wrestling is one of them things. It's one of those businesses where it can get a little scrappy when you really start to uncover it. And we learned that this week with the debut of the Mr. McMahon documentary on Netflix. And I've got a chance to watch. There's about 6 episodes. I think I have 2 more episodes left. So I haven't completely finished it. I have finished up to the point where we're talking about the Montreal Screwjob, where we're talking about the Attitude Era, the WCW. A lot of this documentary is, yes, it talks about Vince McMahon, and it talks about his rise to prominency in the wrestling industry. It goes through, the WWF and Vince Sr., and then Vince buying it from his father, and then having this arrangement, and then, of course, Vince wanting to change the vision and start taking over the territories and eating up every territory in the country and taking their talent and as his own, and then you kind of go through and you get into that point where WCW is introduced to the mainstream, right? Then you have this conversation where WCW is doing the same thing Vince did all those years ago with the territories, taking up their talent, taking their talent, putting them on TV, giving them shine. And Vince was like, well, I was out there to compete, damn it, and they were doing business bad, and then the documentary people go, well, Vince, you did the same thing, did you not? Well, when I did it, it was different. And at that very moment, I knew that this documentary was going to be the delusional ramblings of Vince McMahon. And that's exactly what we got there. I'm going to be honest with you. There should have been like a trigger warning. A lot of the stuff that's talked about, we knew about, right? We knew about the steroid trial. We knew about some of the scandals. Some of the things I wasn't aware of. There was an incident with someone where they were with underage boys. There was a lot in this documentary up to the point where I've gotten, and we even got to the Owen Hart stuff. We talked about the Montreal screw job and the conversations had with Vince, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels, and Vince, Triple H kind of planting the seed of, if he doesn't want to do the business, then we'll do the business for him. And then Vince kind of took that idea, and thus in turn, you have the screw job. I am on the side of, if Brett didn't want to drop the title, you could have done what they called the schmooze finish, right? The nobody wins, and you could have had Brett go up against someone else instead of Shawn Michaels. There was options there. Vince, controversy creates cash. That's what a lot of you'll learn from this documentary. Vince did not care. Did not really. You could think he pretended to care. Whatever the case may be, he cared about the people that drew him the most amount of money. And at the same time, he didn't really care. Because if you weren't drawing him money, then you were nothing to him. If you weren't helping his business, you were nothing. That's my interpretation of what I've seen so far. And of course, they've covered the massive amount of hush money sent out. We've talked about, the controversies, with Owen Hart's unfortunate accident, demise in the ring at Over the Edge. And it's crazy to hear just Vince like, well, the fans came here for a show, and I'm going to give them a show. And it's like, those poor wrestlers that night, the entirety of that situation. And I know coming up, the pipeline with this documentary, I think they're going to get into the Benoit stuff, and they're going to get into the Eddie Guerrero stuff. And, I think they're going to bring us kind of current, where over the last couple of years, most of these recordings with Vince and the talent and the family were back in like 2021. So these interviews and things took place prior to the Janelle Grant, lawsuit findings and the 86 pages of the lawsuit. And I read all those pages, ladies and gentlemen. I wish I didn't read them, but I read them. And there are some things in there that truly disturbed me. Really just disgusting and sick things, and he is an absolute awful human being. He is one of the most deplorable pieces of trash that ever existed. But when it came to this wrestling thing, whether it was stealing people's talent, whether it was stealing people's ideas, he turned this WWF into the WWE, into this billion-dollar monopoly for a time. And it's insane to think that he never lived a normal life, Vince. Like, this was a very eye-opening documentary. And I'm intrigued to finish it. 2 episodes left. I'm intrigued to finish it. I know good brother with Boom Broadcasting, Sean Lucas, said he was going to be watching it soon, and he's going to be covering it on It Stinks, his TV and movie review on Boom Broadcasting show. I would love to see if myself, him, the Prez, Mike Davis, Shannon Smith, all the wrestling guys, Wayne, could get together and kind of watch that, and then all kind of come together and kind of talk about the things that we kind of took away from that. The big thing for me that I took away with is that through all of the ups and downs, Vince did care about the wrestling business, but he was so out of touch to an extent where it was scary. And you can tell that the guy, he is that character. They even asked that question, like, the Mr. McMahon character, is that really Vince? And Most of the talent said, yeah, that's Vince. Some said, oh, that's Vince turned up to, level 10. I would imagine. I've never met the man. I don't know. I don't plan on meeting the guy. What am I going to fucking say to him? You're a fucking piece of shit. Like, yeah, thanks for all those years of the wrestling business. But there's skeletons. There's numerous skeletons in the closet. And, that's life, I guess, for a billionaire who has this world that he controls. He has this power. This is a world that he created from his own mind. This is like, in my personal opinion, he felt that he was God and he could do no wrong and he could get away with really awful things. Keep that in mind when you watch this. It is a very heavy watch. I will put that trigger warning out there for you. It talks a lot about some real heavy stuff, and you see a lot of interesting things. You hear a lot of interesting things he says, but it's kind of what I want to it was a nice, perfect segue. I've been away for a couple weeks. I was talking about the wrestling business being this, and then, let's follow it up with talking about this massive documentary. And I don't know if this is good marketing, bad marketing, neutral marketing from a marketing and sales standpoint, but Netflix gets Raw in January. This very interesting because it's not just the history of Vince McMahon. They really do go into details about the history of wrestling too, bits and pieces of it. But it was very interesting to see this all woven and just how interwoven McMahon is with wrestling. Like that, I think, is another really big kind of takeaway from this. So good marketing, I guess, on Netflix part, very gray area marketing, because that's a big that's number 3 in the U.S. right now for TV shows, that documentary on Netflix. And I guarantee you by the end of the weekend, it'll be number 1. So it's like, that's a huge, thing. And because we know Raw's going to Netflix, and we also know that October 7th, Raw's going back to 2 hours until they go to Netflix in January. So you take the flagship show, you drop it back down to 2 hours. Do that weird. Go back to 2 hours. You have a ton of talent on Raw now. It may not get the shine without that extra third hour. I immediately go to the women's division, right? I will say the women's division on SmackDown, they've been getting a lot more shine recently. And that is including with the Bloodline stuff, too. So maybe it'll work out, but it's such a weird... It's like for me personally, growing up, I was alive for when Raw was 2 hours. But then I was also alive and, most cognizant of when Raw was 3 hours, right? Those memories are fleeting as I get older and such. But when Raw was on the USA Network and it was, going to 3 hours, I remember the commercial where it's like, tell them Raw's going to, 3 hours, or tell them, the Great Khali or something, you know what I'm saying? The Great Khali's due for a colonoscopy or something, if you guys remember the commercial or whatever. And then you see Khali put the glove on and, Vince, I remember that commercial, and I'm sure you guys remember that commercial too when they announced Raw going to 3 hours. And then you had the super shows or whatever. You had where Raw and SmackDown, there was no draft, there was no separate rosters. But yeah, most of my life, Raw was 3 hours. So I kind of just got used to it. I was just like, oh, Raw's 3 hours. I know a lot of people are like, oh, put Raw back to 3 hours. And then now, as soon as it goes back to 2 hours, everyone's like, no, wait a minute. Time out. No. Well, what about the talent? What about the talent that we may not get to see in those 3 hours? And you're cutting it down an hour. Now you only have 2 hours on Monday nights, which, to be honest, for me, as a podcaster who has a live show, I ain't mad at this. 2 hours, Raw, Monday night. Mondays is tough. You know what I'm saying? We all got jobs. Unless you're a big shot content creator, then your job is creating content full time. I got a job. I got a full-time job. You got a full-time job watching this, listening to this. So it's Raw 3 hours, especially if you're on the East Coast. You're talking 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, Raw's ending. You're like, damn, I got to be up at 6, 7 a.m. the next morning on a Tuesday. And then if you watch NXT, then boom, you got NXT Tuesday. Raw going to 2 hours, I'm cool with it for the stretch. Because when we know when Raw goes to Netflix, which I'm intrigued to see how that plays out, man. We're gonna get we've gotten taste of it with Netflix. If you have a Netflix account, we've gotten taste of it with some live sports programming before in the past, some boxing stuff and some golf matchups. And I think a Formula One race was on Netflix. And there's been other live shows that are escaping me right now. But I'm intrigued to see how it goes weekly. Like, WWE, okay. I know I know I bitch about commercials when I watch wrestling. I bitch about commercials when I watch all shows. Like, we cut cable cord for streaming because there's no commercials. Now we have commercials on streaming. Then you have to pay an extra $2, $3 a month to get ad-free Peacock, Paramount, Netflix, Hulu, Disney, ESPN Plus, etc., all the streaming service. Now there's, everyone's got a streaming service. Now, fuck it, I'm making a streaming service. Mouthing off with my streaming service. You pay me 5 cans of tomatoes and I'll make you gravy on a Sunday with some spaghetti. You know what I'm saying? Look, I'm intrigued to see how it goes from a business standpoint because I don't think people are like, oh, there's going to be no commercials. There'll be limited commercials. Do you know how valuable ad space is on weekly wrestling shows? Like, legitimately. Especially Raw. 3 hours on network television every Monday. Guaranteed you're going to have a ton of commercials per hour. Think about that profit margin for WWE when it comes to selling that ad space. Think about USA when it comes to selling that ad space. That's huge money we're talking, right? But obviously USA's getting SmackDown. They're retaining SmackDown in this crazy trade. NXT goes to the CW network. Still have no idea if they even have an app where I can log my cable into and watch it, or if I gotta, do the old, what I mean, wrestling fans. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not gonna say things. I'm not gonna perjure myself here on the internet. But I'm intrigued to see what that ad space looks like. Like, are there going to be advertisements for Netflix shows? Will there be advertisements for that we normally see, like, like a Pantene commercial or a commercial for countless amounts of peptide glutides, Ozempic fucking commercials in between Raw like we see on weekly television, on network television. It comes out. I'm intrigued to see where that goes. Now let's kind of look at SmackDown. SmackDown goes to the USA Network. You heard me say SmackDown gets a new updated logo. You heard me talk about the presentation on the nightcap on Boom Broadcasting. But now let's talk about it. When Raw leaves USA in January to go to Netflix, Raw goes back from 2 to 3 hours on Netflix. SmackDown goes from 2 to 3 hours on a Friday night. So, right? See, there it is. USA had to get something out of this. So they're going to do the extra hour on a Friday night. They're going to get their ad space, their ad revenue, yada, 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 business, blah, blah, blah. You probably already tuned out if you're listening to this or watching this. But I love the business side of things. Like, I love the marketing. I love the sales aspect of, like, when you look at professional wrestling. That's a huge bump for USA because they lose 2 shows per week. They're going to lose Raw. They're going to lose NXT. So they get SmackDown, they bump it at a 3rd hour. That helps SmackDown drastically. We know that that's going to help SmackDown drastically. We know the Bloodline, it's Bloodline heavy. Especially when you talk about Cody and Roman teaming up at Bad Blood. We'll get there in a few. But that helps USA because they lose 5 hours of wrestling television per week. But instead of losing 5, they still retain 3. So they only lose really, quote-unquote, the 2 hours of NXT. Now, look at NXT. NXT goes to the CW. Now, the CW is starting to dabble in sports now. They've been having college football. They've been having NASCAR races, F1 races. I'm sure there'll be some form of baseball. Maybe other sports start appearing on the CW. But NXT going to the CW is massive for the CW because here's the other kicker. The CW had wrestling with NWA Power on the app. But NWA was about to get CW space about a year ago, and they ran a silly little segment where someone was doing cocaine, and CW ripped that out faster than you would rip out the cord for your toaster oven. Like, ripped that Band-Aid off, said, see you later, you're going to the app. We're not putting you on television. What are you, nuts? NXT gets that. Now that's huge. Because NXT has never been on anything other than Peacock or USA. The CW now, rumors are speculating. When I record this at the time of this date and time that I'm not going to specify because Hey, whatever. You don't need to know. When I recorded this is key. I'll keep my secrets. Apparently it's going to TV 14. TV 14, ladies and gentlemen, means there won't be editing of chance of, asshole, holy shit, you fucked up. There'll probably be some more edgier stuff. I talked a lot about this last week with Torn on the NXT Nightcap. I've been watching NXT from the day one. I've been a day one NXT guy. I was going to NXT live shows when they would actually tour out where I reside on the West Coast. I went to an event in California when I was living out there at the fuck, I don't even remember the name of the venue. But it was like one of those venues where like the ring was on the stage of the venue and you were like standing room only. So it was like a concert vibe, but the ring was on top. It was very, very unique wrestling show I've ever attended. One of the most unique ones I've attended before. I have followed NXT. I have followed this talent through and through. I have watched Bianca. I watched Bianca Belair debut when she didn't have not a bit of character work to her, where her only thing was she was twirling her hair. I saw Asuka during her record-breaking NXT Women's Championship run. Shayna Baszler. Man, oh man, Rhea Ripley before she was Rhea Bloody Ripley. Bobby Roode, DIY, Andrade, Drew McIntyre when he was in NXT. I've been watching NXT for a long, long time. One of my favorite weekly wrestling shows. Will be a big NXT fan. From the Black and Gold to the original version to NXT 2.0 so very horny. I'm a fan of everything NXT has done, and I am even more of a fan of the HBK NXT. And he's even went on the record that said there's going to be some changes coming, like presentation. The things are going to be presented a little bit differently. And that's where that makes me think like NXT is going to be really starting to be that third brand of WWE. It is developmental, but it's gotten itself over, and it's gotten itself to the point where it is developmental, but it's not anymore. You have main roster stars coming down there to wrestle this talent. You have main roster stars holding championships at one point or another. You have NXT feeling like it is its own entity now compared to a Raw and a SmackDown. It has its own feel. It has its own cast of characters. It has a different vibe to it. As corny as that sounds, it does. It really does. The NXT debut on the CW, October 1st, Chicago, Illinois. You got CM Punk on the show. You got The Miz on the show. We got A-Town Down Under in action. You got the debut championship match for Julie against Roxanne Perez. You have Wesley and Zachary Wentz in a street fight, a TNA talents on the show. You have so much on that debut episode next Tuesday, and it's going to be damn good. It's a baby premium live event. It is a baby premium live event. You got Trick Williams and Ethan Page with CM Punk special guest referee. And there's going to be more surprises, I guarantee it. Maybe Jade and Bianca show up. Who knows? They're talking about it. We'll see. They're the host of Bad Blood, which I think is a great idea by Triple H. If Triple H is really hard on that 5-match card pay-per-view, I want them on the show in some capacity. Make them the host. They're going to have fun. They'll come up with some entertaining segments. They already hinted at mystery surprises. I wouldn't be surprised because Metro Boomin and Future's song is the theme song of Bad Blood, which is a chef's kiss. I love watching people freak the F out about why did they pick Meg Thee Stallion as the SmackDown theme song. That was a conversation last week when I was on vacation. What are we doing here? What are we even talking about? What are we even talking about? You don't like it? Cry Me a River, dude. That song bops. Dude. That's a good little song. Metro Boomin and Future as a song for Bad Blood. Fire. Absolute fire. So I wouldn't be shocked if they're there. I don't know who else we could see. Maybe some other Atlanta rappers make an appearance. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I mean, we know Cardi B announced the SummerSlam 2 nights in New Jersey, which is wild. Cardi B's a big wrestling fan. So I think that's pretty rad if Cardi ends up hosting SummerSlam at MetLife in New Jersey. Let me get a motherfucking bacon, egg, and cheese, huh? I know the Four Sides of the Ring boys will be out there for SummerSlam. I know they're hitting me. Hey, come on, come to New Jersey. Come to SummerSlam. Listen, I'm trying to go to Vegas WrestleMania. I'm trying to drink a Fat Tuesday while I'm walking down the street having a conversation with Sister Mary Jane on the way to WrestleMania. That's what I'm trying to do. You know what I'm saying? Listen. Hear me out. Hear me out. WrestleMania Vegas is going to be a party. Can you imagine after WrestleMania Night 2 going to the casino, everyone singing whoever's theme song? Maybe it's Cody Rhodes, maybe it's Randy Orton, maybe it's John Cena. You got all these wrestling fans in their merch and their tag team championships and their belts walking around the strip, and you hear, yeah, woo, whoa, like just, oh my God, it'll be so, the indie events that you could have at some of the unique venues in Vegas, just the overall, like, come on, the Sphere, if they pull off having a Raw or a SmackDown in the Sphere, like, Vegas Mania is going to be special, and those tickets go on sale at the end of October, so let's hope WWE's not raking us over the coals. I know those VIP packages are like $50,000 for the front row. Listen, hear me out. If 50,000 people see this video and you send me $1, each of you send me $1, I will sit ringside and I will bring as many different signs as 50,000 of you can come together on. We'll bring 5 different signs just for the laughs. All right. I'm only kidding. Please don't send me your money, please. I just do this because this is cheaper than therapy. Listen, WWE's got a lot of things going on here when it comes to new networks, new hours, new documentaries, new shenanigans. AEW's got a lot going on. The 5-year anniversary of AEW next week. You got Ricochet and Will Ospreay for the International Championship, which is probably going to be something absolutely absurd. It's going to be something plucked straight out of an anime, straight out of an action fight sequence from an action movie. It's going to be nuts. Collision this past Saturday had a bull rope match with Jeff Jarrett and the Hangman, which, my goodness, them guys are nuts. AEW gets a lot of slack, man. And Tony's catching a lot of heat this week with this whole contract bullshit, but I have to give them their credit, man. 5 years ago, this was a concept. This was a dream. This was you can't sell out an arena. You can't have a show booked by independent wrestlers. You can't fund it. You can't sell out this arena. They did it with All Out. Or All In, excuse me. Then they had their first show officially, which was at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. Double or Nothing. I'll get on a tangent here. I hated professional wrestling. 2017 was really the last time I really I really enjoyed wrestling. Me and my good brother Jordan, we would go to a lot of shows, out here when we were in college, and we had some, hella times. We got to see the first ever gauntlet match on Raw, that crazy gauntlet match from like 2018 with, Cena, Seth, Roman, Miz, Braun, and forgetting one, Finn maybe was in that. We have seen so many cool moments. We saw when Bray Wyatt captured his first WWE Championship in the Elimination Chamber. We saw so much happen. We got to see the Royal Rumble 2019 with Seth and Becky both winning. We saw so many memories, but towards that tail end, like 2019, man, I just was so checked out of wrestling. WWE was not good. It wasn't. It was not good. There was only one good thing that I would tune into, and that was Bray Wyatt with The Fiend. That was the only thing I would watch. I would watch it. I would see what the main event was for the night. I'd be like, all right, maybe. And usually I'd just wait for the Fiend stuff, click off. If I saw on social media that there was another Fiend thing, I'd turn it back on and watch that. That was really it. That was what kept me going. And then here comes this AEW. And then I was always a fan of Cody Rhodes. I liked the Young Bucks. I liked Kenny Omega. I liked some of the talent that they started with. I liked Chris Jericho. I liked Hangman. I knew of most of these guys from Ring of Honor and seeing clips with PWG and stuff. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give this AEW a shot. Like their advertising is the alternative. I went to Double or Nothing on a hitch. Jordan hits me up. He goes, dude, are you going to Double or Nothing? And I was like, nah, dude. I work like till like 7 a.m. I work an overnight, at this gig, and like I'm not gonna make it, and I don't have a ticket. He's like, dude, you should really go. Like, you'd be a part of history. And I was like, I kept hearing that all throughout my shift. You could be a part of history. You could be a part of history. And I was like, you know what? I want to be a part of history. I want to go in the future and tell people and tell maybe my kids, be like, back in my day, Sonny, I was at the first all elite Double or Nothing. I'm in my little rocking chair. I got my little shaky cane with my glasses that are this thick, Back in my day, Sonny. So I went, and Double or Nothing, I got to see one of the best matches I ever saw in my life. Dustin Rhodes versus Cody Rhodes, brother versus brother, in an absolute bloodbath. And AEW sparked my love of pro wrestling. I'm never going to wish or pray for the downfall of AEW because that puts a lot of talent and a lot of people who do the behind-the-scenes work out of a job. Okay? I will tell, and I will say, there's been questionable decisions. Over the last couple weeks, I have thoroughly enjoyed what they put out. I think with a guy like MVP coming in the fold, that's a great creative mind to have backstage, let alone on character, on screen. That's great to have. But having a guy like that who's had the insights of the wrestling business for over 2-3 decades, that's a great plus. Of course, you've got a Bryan Danielson. Of course, you've got, guys back there, Christopher Daniels and maybe a Shane McMahon. Everyone saw the picture with the Young Bucks and Shane McMahon this week. Anything's possible, right? The last thing I want to talk about here today. Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes will team up together at Bad Blood to take on the new Bloodline and the new Tribal Chief and the new Enforcer, Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. Mr. I love you, Solo. I love that shit. I love it. I love Jacob Fatu. I like Solo Sikoa. A lot of people, Solo's boring. To be honest, guys, Solo's pretty good. He's fitting this role nicely. Cody and Roman, they have this cinematic, movie-esque promo in the middle of the Georgia Tech football stadium in Roman's football territory days and Cody's home state. Great work here. A lot of people didn't like it. There was mixed bag on it. I loved every second of this. I have made the comparison that Cody and Roman is going to be what Dusty and Rick was. It's going to be what Edge and Cena was. These two are going to do it for as long as they wrestle in their careers. These two will be fighting one another. And if they have to come together for the sake of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, they will. And that's what we're getting. The enemy of my enemy is my friend dynamic here. Roman doesn't like Cody. Cody sure as shit doesn't like Roman. You've got the Bloodline stands and the Cody crybabies, as I guess Cody fans are still called. I just call us Cody Rhodes fans. I don't know why we're still doing this. But you've got these different fan bases that are chirping back and forth. All of a sudden, they've tied the flags together. They're united. Which is amazing to think that it's all it took was like, hey, your guy and my guy, we don't like this guy. So, now we're cool. We're going to be cool for this. I talked with Chano about this on the nightcap Friday night after SmackDown from Four Sides, and we were kind of like, spitballing, if this was the creative room, we were taking notes and crumple them up and throwing them in the trash, and we couldn't really figure out how this dynamic plays out if The Rock comes back. What does Survivor Series look like? Does Cody join up with Roman and the Usos? Does Cody join up with Roman, the Usos, and Sami Zayn in the mix? Who's the fifth? If they do 5v5 for Bloodlines War Games, who's the fifth for Solo's Bloodline? Who's the fifth for Roman? Is Jimmy cleared? Would Jimmy even be a part of this? Would it be a 4v4? There's a lot. This is so unique. This is so good. Like, slow build. Step by step we got here. Page by page. You go back to WrestleMania 38. Cody Rhodes returns to WWE. He beats Seth. He goes that whole next year. He gets an opportunity at WrestleMania 39 to face Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Championship. He loses thanks to Solo Sikoa and the Bloodline. Then you go to WrestleMania 40. We win the Royal Rumble. We add in The Rock to this, the final boss. If you smell what the final boss is cooking. They beat Cody and Seth night 1. It's Bloodline Rules night 2. Cody calls up the Cody Vengers. He ends up capturing his first WWE Championship World titles, something his father never was able to accomplish. The story, the boyhood dream is complete. In a spectacular moment, you got me in the crowd screaming. He finished his story acting like a fool, but it was a great moment. That's a moment, right? The WrestleMania moments that we've longed for, we got. Now you have this. Now you fast forward. Cody's the champ. He's taking on all challengers. He's giving title opportunities to Kevin. He's taking on AJ Styles. He's taking on Logan Paul. Now he's teaming up with Roman. Roman's got nobody. His family is gone. Jimmy was taken out by Solo. He mistreated Jay so bad, Cody got him on Raw. Jay got himself the Intercontinental Championship. Much love to Jay Uso, man. Been watching him my whole life. Great guy, man. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. Cody and Roman teaming up, that's just another page in the story. That's another chapter in this story. I've said that this story, the Cody the Rhodes, the finish the story, it's not just Cody's story. It's Roman's story. Their stories are forever bound in the same book. These two will do this for years to come. Whether they are bitter enemies, whether they're friends for a means to an end, this is good long-term storytelling. And like I said, their story is bound in the same book. I can't wait for Bad Blood. I'll have my Bad Blood predictions coming at you this week, most likely on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, most likely Tuesday. This has been Mouthing Off with Mike. Thank you guys for supporting me with Boom Broadcasting. Thank you for watching me on my own YouTube. If you like what you heard today, drop a subscribe, drop a like. Tell me in the comments what you liked. What do you think did you like what I said? Did you hate what I say? I'm all for constructive criticism. Just don't take it too far. But man, it feels good to be back. It feels good to be talking with all of you guys. Much love to everybody that we collaborate with, that I collaborate with Boom Broadcasting, Black Masters Constellations, Derek Wrestling, Toys and Tees, Four Sides of the Ring, Championship Culture, and Two Heads, One Table. There's so many more. Ryan of They Made Their Way to the Ring. My man just got one of his big accomplishments checked off his bucket. He got to interview Layla, one of his favorite women's wrestlers, divas of all time. A woman who really didn't want to talk about her wrestling career, but she granted Ryan this exclusive interview, so go check out They Made Their Way to the Ring. You can go on my socials. You'll see me retweeting his episode, or just type it in your Spotify app or Apple Music. They Made Their Way to the Ring. It was a great interview, and maybe Layla might be coming back. You're going to have to listen to the interview to hear what she said about the potential of her in WWE in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I will be back with Bad Blood predictions. I will be back with the nightcap next week on Boom Broadcasting. Go subscribe. Go show love. Have a good weekend. Enjoy this weekend of football, wrestling, or whatever you like to get into. I'm out of here, guys.
Mouthing off with Mike. Mouthing off with Mike. Mouthing off with Mike.